Well, we're actually focused on our own troubles, to be honest, because they're severe. And I think if you look at the Irish economy, it's going through the same kind of issues that we are in the United States and they are in England and basically around the world. So the American view of Ireland, I think, is it dramatically improved when the peace process came about. There's no question that the Americans were always concerned about that. And it sort of took, I've talked to people in Belfast and in particular, and they say that our 9/11, if there was anything good that came from that tragic event, was that the Irish said, enough of this, enough terrorism. And so the view of Ireland, there's 40 million of us in the United States of Irish heritage, and we're very fond of Ireland and our heritage from it. And I think the issue now that people are looking at is because we have our own economic problems. So I think America wants to see how this vote's going to come out on the referendum on the European Union. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
It's interesting because, of course, Fox News is part of the Murdoch empire, and we just saw over the past week the Wall Street Journal, which was a very esteemed publication, coming out with a very strong editorial against the Lisbon Treaty. Now, a lot of people in Ireland who are in favour of the Lisbon Treaty were quite shocked at that and feeling, is this Murdoch now trying to influence events in Europe?
Well, the Wall Street Journal is another part of News Corporation. I don't pretend to have any influence or any intelligence, inside information on their editorial policy. And I worry about the television stations and our coverage, so.
What's your own view about the Lisbon Treaty? Do you think that we need to vote yes or no to it?
I haven't studied it in the greatest detail, so if I was here and had a vote, I would do that. I think there are considerable issues, pro and con, which you would hope is that when the vote comes, it's interesting that one country could have such an impact on the entire European Union. I must say that in my travels around, though, I've heard from some people in the smaller countries that there are issues as regards how the European Union has dictated certain things to them, and not always to their advantage.
But when you say America is watching Ireland right now in terms of the Lisbon Treaty, presumably you're talking about an elite group of people.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, most Americans right now are scrambling to survive in their own environment. Our unemployment is going to hit 10%, and those kind of statistics haven't been around for a long time. And so the people in our country are really more focused on their own issues. As regards to Ireland, the ones that really pay closest attention would be waiting to see what the outcome of this vote on the referendum would be.
Do you think that there is a sense now in America that Ireland has turned into a little bit of a banana republic, that we seem to have a lot of cowboys around the place in terms of what happened with the developers here, the way our banks behaved, and the sort of reckless lending practices that they adopted, the poor regulation as well? And Ireland, of course, as you know, was seen as a very successful small country, came from poverty to wealth, and now it looks like we've blown it. Do you think that's the perspective in America right now?
Well, people that live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones is sort of an old expression, and we're guilty of everything that you've just described in our own country. And I think that what made Ireland successful, what made the Celtic Tiger roar, it was a well-educated workforce. It was a country that was pretty well wired from a technology standpoint, and it was a favorable tax structure. And those conditions still exist. So if there were people who, bankers or whatever, that made bad loans, they did that all over the world. But that doesn't mean that the system that drew business here, that there was something wrong with that. It just meant that there are individuals. The same is true in our country. We had we had people, making these bad loans, and then the government has to step in and bail them out. I mean, our automobile industry, nobody's figured that thing out for a long period of time, and so I don't think Americans are blaming the Irish system. I think we got to look inward and figure out our own problems.
And what about your current president, Barack Obama? Of course, Fox News has been supporting Republican presidents, so you weren't exactly in favour of Barack Obama becoming president. Well, what do you make of his presidency so far? Well,
I think that anybody who is a citizen in the United States right now prays that Barack Obama is successful, because we need somebody to lead our country out of the problems that we have now. What would be a concern of mine is we're piling up the Congress when they institute this TARP bill, which he signed. I mean, I think that was one of the things that Bush could be criticized for, is he didn't veto anything that came from the Congress. He wanted support for his war in Iraq, and so the pork bills that were coming out of the Congress were insane. And and here's this TARP bill. Now we find out they want to build a train from Disneyland to Las Vegas. Why? Because Harry Reid's the senator from from Nevada, and that's just a waste of money. That's folly, and there's a lot of that in there. So our country tends to be middle of the road, and Clinton figured that out and went middle of the road, and he raised some taxes, but we were paying off the national debt. If Bush hadn't gone into Iraq, we'd probably be out of debt. So I think while we want it to work, and hope that it does, there's some real concerns that we're getting too far in debt, and that's why he's run into trouble on his health reform package.
Do you think he will be able to get the health reform package through?
Right now, it would look pretty bleak.
Because you think the Republicans are just going to vote it down?
Well, there are people in his own party that are dissatisfied, and I think the public option. I mean, the public. I don't need the government to determine my health care. I have a great health care plan which I pay for, and my company pays for, and we'd love to see health care for everyone, but you have to do what you can afford, and the government, I'm not sure, has ever proven that it can run anything real well for a long period of time. So most Americans, or many Americans, if you believe in the polls, the majority of Americans are opposed to the government being in health care. Now, the majority of the Americans are not opposed to everybody having an adequate health care plan, but you've got to be able to afford, and the Congressional Budget Office came out and said that the plan that the administration was proposing would just drive our debt way much further, and at some point you can't have everything that you would like.